Okay, let's talk about the national debt in terms maybe more of us can understand. Let's say this boat, the USS National Budget, represents our tax dollars. This boat has the capacity to be pretty big because we are hardworking to have the incentive of nice stuff when we are successful. Now that's a pretty big boat, and we think we can afford a lot of stuff. So we vote ourselves a nice retirement plan called Social Security in 1935. We also want to keep all our cool stuff safe, so we spend a whole lot on our military so they can have all kinds of shiny new stuff. Now, we have this big population balloon called the baby boomers who make a lot of money and buy a lot of cool stuff. But we all know they are going to get old and retire and want their social security. So we save our money and invest wisely in preparation for the baby boomers to retire. Oh, just kidding. Actually, we spend all the social security money to buy more cool stuff. In fact, during this time of huge prosperity, we not only spend Social Security money, but we also borrow lots of money and buy lots and lots of cool stuff. So now it's time to tell you about this other boat we have. This boat is the USS National Debt. It holds all the money we have borrowed to buy stuff. When we buy more stuff than we have money for, we borrow it and throw it on the debt boat. But when we do that, a lot of it adds another big expense to our national budget boat called interest on the debt. Throughout most of our nation's history, we could borrow money to fight a war, like the War of 1812, World War I, World War II, etc. And after each of these wars, we would spend less than we had and pay back those who had loaned us money. This kept our debt boat fairly small. Then we decided to create a national health care plan in 1965 called Medicare. Now this package is a little different because it had the capacity to get bigger and bigger like a giant sponge. Of course, when we passed this, we started saving money because we knew the baby boomers were still floating overhead and were going to start retiring around 2010. Just kidding. Things changed in about 1980 when we decided to have a Cold War and spent a lot of money on defense when we weren't actually fighting. Since we weren't really at war, we didn't see the reason to sacrifice and spend less on other things. Since 1980, our national debt has grown from 909 billion to 14.3 trillion today in 2011. So then we won the Cold War and so stopped spending huge amounts on defense, right? Well, no. We had this iceberg that the US national budget struck called 9/11, which not only shrunk our economy and tax revenue, but also caused a huge leak in our boat called Gulf War I and Gulf War II, or just the War on Terror. So during this time of hot war, we sacrificed and stopped buying so much cool stuff, right? Well, no. We were so used to not sacrificing during the Cold War that we went on with our lives as usual, credit card in one hand and one remote control in the other. We were too busy buying season tickets so athletes could make millions a year to be bothered by the growing national debt. Also during this time we gave ourselves tax breaks and voted in another entitlement program in 2006 called Medicaid. This one is also unlimited and much more costly than people thought. So here we are in 2011. Our government is borrowing 40 cents out of every dollar it spends. Its budget projections for the next 5 years all reflect borrowing about $1 trillion a year. The baby boomers are retiring and collecting Social Security. Medicare and Medicaid, we owe trillions to governments and people who are hostile to our way of life. We have a debt that is about equal to our gross domestic product, and we spend more on interest than we spend on education. In a recent speech, President Obama said he was going to right the ships by making Medicare and Medicaid more efficient. Other than the obvious oxymoron of government efficiency, this is a little like saying you're going to switch from cloth napkins to paper on a 5-course gourmet meal for $311 million.